Hello there, welcome back to Perkins Pipes. My friends, I have been so eager to record this video. Couldn't wait to do this one. Cannot wait for it to come out eventually. And for this one, I had no choice at all, but to bring out the gorgeous handcrafted golden waffle principal pipe made for me by Caleb at the Catholic Pipe Company. He made this beautiful green pipe with the white acrylic stem. We've got the circles here picking up part of the cover design of the book and the actual logo of the book here on the front. This was my most recent book. Came out in early 2025, a collection of essays on education. And there's a reason why it had to be this pipe and a reason why it had to be this hat, which is from the place where my son works. It's an industrial design company. What is this all about, and why is Steve so excited? Folks, let's get this guy lit as always, and let's get to talking. I am so eager, finally, to reveal to you my newest project. You ready for it? My translation of the epic Latin poem by Virgil, the Aeneid, is coming out in 2026. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar, quick background. When you think of epic poems, you think of the Iliad and the Odyssey by Homer. You think of Gilgamesh. You think of Beowulf. Some of these, we don't know the author. You think of Paradise Lost by John Milton. There have been many others. There has been the Thebaid by the poet Statius. There's been the Pharsalia by Lucan. There's been an Alexandriad, an epic poem about Alexander the Great by Walter of Chatillon. There's been more than one epic poem written, not to great success, about King David and even Jesus. The Aeneid is Rome's great epic poem, written by Virgil in the 1st century BC. Really at the request of the Emperor Augustus. It's a 12-book epic, 9,895 lines of Latin dactylic hexameter poetry. For about 20 years, I've been noodling around with translating it. I enjoy translation. I've translated other works. And I've thought about doing the Aeneid. Now, first of all, you say, wow, Steve, hard to believe that nobody has translated the Aeneid before now. Well, let me assure you, they have many, many, many times into English, to say nothing of other languages. Now, I'll link to a website that I put together some years ago that lists, as far as I know, all of the English translations dating back to the 1500s. The very first one was done into the dialect called Scots by Gavin Douglas, and it's been consistently translated into English ever since. And there have been translations right up into the 21st century. And you say, well, okay, why another? Several reasons, and I get into this quite a bit in the preface. The preface to the book is rather long, as I talk about the why of another Aeneid, and I get into really the mechanics of translation and why and how I want to approach this. I want to approach it from the perspective of the incredibly good story that it is. It's just a great story. There's action, there's adventure, there's hope, there's dreams, there's disaster, there's death, love. It's got it all. It's really got it all in one story. And while it mostly has been translated into poetry, because it is a poem. Not all the poetry's been all that great. And indeed, I toyed around with different poetic translations, and I talk about that in the preface as well. I ultimately decided on a prose translation, and there have been some prose translations of it, just as there have of the Iliad and the Odyssey. And some people say, well, that's impossible. You can't translate poetry as prose. That's a totally different thing. I think it was in the 1990s, there was a prose translation of the Aeneid by a guy named David West, published by Penguin Classics, and he addresses this. And he said, that kind of a comment does disservice to some of our really great prose writers. Prose can sing the way poetry does as well. And very often it seems that something is lost in trying to take the story into English poetry in the effort to craft a good English poem. So I want to focus on the story aspect. And the story aspect, in my mind and in my ear, as I hear Virgil telling it, has a very Tolkien-esque feel to it. It sounds like something that could come from the Shire. It sounds like Lewis's Narnia in places. And I really didn't have to do much work to make it sound that way in English. By hewing fairly closely to the Latin, it actually has that sort of feel, that somewhat mystical, mysterious, bygone feel to it. And that's what I wanted to capture. Now, I actually got to work on this as the recording of this video seriously a little over a year ago. So about 20 years I've been noodling around with stuff. And then about a year ago, we were actually watching the modern films of the Narnia stuff. Our adult children were home, wanted to watch that again, so we were watching it. And one evening we were watching it, and I thought, man, this is so similar to the Aeneid in the way, the structure, and the storytelling and that. And I thought, you know what? I think I'm going to try this one more time. I'm going to get back into it, see what happens. And so it took me about a little over a year, to knock out the first draft of just rough translation. Then, as of the recording of this video, which I believe is going to come out in November, I'm into the polishing stage and working it through and just working it, until we can get it in the form that we want it. I do have a publisher for it, I'm excited to say. So it should be coming out in 2026. Now, there's another reason why I wanted to do this. Okay? I wanted to tell the story of the Aeneid. I wanted to be in that kind of story form. Obviously, I wanted to reach people. I want people to be excited and enjoy the Aeneid. Even people who may not be familiar with it. I got a friend of mine, Barry. So a little shout out to Barry, who said, I've never read it, but he said, I'm waiting for your translation to come out, and that will be the first time I read the Aeneid. So I want to introduce it to people. I want it to be a good translation that students could use, whether they're reading it for a literature class or, hey, let's be honest, you need a little help with your Latin homework. And what is how does Virgil translate this? Well, let me check to see how that looks in a fairly literal translation. And there's another reason. I simply wanted to do it. This was a personal project for me. I just wanted to do it. And if there had been no other reason whatsoever, and no other use whatsoever, in which case probably wouldn't have found a publisher who would want to publish it, then I would have published it myself. Why do you climb the mountain? Because it's there. I'm a Latinist. I have taught Latin for, at this point, 35 years. At secondary and collegiate levels. I love Latin and I love the literature, and this is the gem. This is the Hope Diamond when it comes to Latin literature and poetry. And I just wanted to do it. Just for me. Personal project. So let me ask you a question. You got any personal projects that you want to do? Maybe it's travel, learn a language, make a bookcase, craft a pipe, write your own poem, write your own novel, compose a play, write a song, perform it, learn to dance, learn to ride a motorcycle, learn to ride a horse, learn to fish, go mountain climbing. What is the grand project or grand projects that you want to do, you feel called to do it, and you need it in your soul? You need it to feed your soul. Friends, don't wait. That might be something you're noodling around with for 20 years, as I was. I know, you finally have the time to really sit down and knock it out and do it right. There are a lot of things we get into in our retirement years. But there are other things that you can do while you're in the working years and perhaps the parenting years and so forth. And we're not saying ignore your family, right, to indulge your hobbies. There are too many people who do that. But what's a big one that you just want to do for your own soul's sake, to feed and nurture your heart? Please share some comments. I'd love to hear what that would be for you. Now, another question. Are you familiar with the Aeneid, the great epic poem? Now, it's one of those, I will say that it's been in constant publication in English since the 1500s. People have been reading it ever since Virgil died. So 2,000 years, the Aeneid has been constantly read without fail. At this point in American schools, it does seem to be that more people are familiar with Homer's Odyssey. Fewer people are familiar with Homer's Iliad, and maybe fewer people are as familiar with Virgil's Aeneid. So those have kind of come and gone in popularity. Who knows why these things are? So are you familiar with the Aeneid? If you know the Aeneid, do you like it? If so, what do you like about it? If not, what do you not like about it? And whether you know it or not, I hope when my translation comes out, you pick up a copy, and I hope you like it. I hope it turns you on to one of the really great, wonderful, broad adventure stories in human literature. Folks, as Malcolm Guite likes to say, I do these little things in order at last to do nothing. Or as I like to say in Latin, Parva ago ut tandem, nihil agam. Have a wonderful day.